In the frozen north, where fire and ice clashed beneath the endless skies, the Vikings believed in a magic older than their gods, a power so feared that even Odin, the All-Father, risked everything to claim it. They called it Seidr, a sorcery of visions, prophecy, and fate. It was the power to weave destiny itself, but at a terrible price. Feared by men, guarded by women, and punished with shame. This is the story of Viking witchcraft, the forbidden magic of the Norse gods. But to truly understand Seidr, we must first step into the world of the Vikings themselves. The Viking Age was a world of extremes, frozen winters that seemed endless, summers short but filled with life and raids. Men and women carved their survival out of forests, mountains, and seas. And every day was a battle against hunger, the cold, and enemies both mortal and unseen. Their lives were bound by a deep belief that fate or word was inescapable. No king, no warrior, not even a god, could escape the thread woven by the Norns, the mysterious weavers of destiny who sat at the roots of Yggdrasil, the great world tree. These three sisters spun, measured, and cut the threads of every life, from the lowliest farmer to Odin himself. To the Vikings, existence was fragile and shaped by forces beyond human understanding. Every illness, every storm at sea, every victory in battle, all could be signs of destiny at work. And so they turned to Seidr, not as mere superstition, but as a way to glimpse beyond the veil, a way to touch the threads of fate itself, to bend what could not be bent. For in the harsh lands of the north, power did not always come from sword or shield. Sometimes it came from spells whispered in the dark and visions that burned through the mind like fire. And this brings us to Seidr itself, the most feared, mysterious, and alluring form of Norse magic. Seidr was not mere trickery or illusion. It was a sorcery of visions, prophecy, and power over destiny itself. Unlike simple charms or healing herbs, Seidr was a doorway into the unseen, a communion with forces that shaped the very fabric of existence. At its heart, Seidr was about the weaving of fate. To the Vikings, life was not a straight path, but a thread, spun, woven, and cut. And the one who practiced Seidr claimed the ability to glimpse these threads, to pull them, knot them, or unravel them. It was a magic that could foretell the doom of kings, alter the outcome of battles, or seal the destiny of entire families. But this knowledge came at a cost. Practicing Seidr was not without danger. To touch the threads of fate was to risk becoming entangled in them, to lose oneself in visions of what was and what might be. The rituals of Seidr were as strange and haunting as the power itself. A seer or sorceress would enter a trance, sometimes through chanting known as Galdr, where repeated songs or words opened the mind to visions. Others would sit high upon a platform, staff in hand, the sacred Seidstafr, believed to channel the flow of magical power. Through rhythm, song, and sacred objects, the practitioner journeyed beyond ordinary sight, into a state where spirits whispered and the threads of destiny glimmered like a hidden tapestry. To those who watched, it must have seemed as though the Völva, the Seeress, had left the world entirely, her voice trembling with words that came not from herself, but from somewhere else. Perhaps from the Norns, perhaps from the gods, perhaps from something older still. Seidr was not just magic, it was the forbidden act of reaching into the unseen order of the universe and daring to change it. And those who dared to wield Seidr were most often women. They were known as the Völur, singular Völva. These were the Seeresses of the north, shamans, priestesses, and witches all at once. In a society ruled by warriors and kings, the Völur held a different kind of power, a power not of swords and shields, but of visions and fate. The Völva stood at the edge of two worlds, the mortal and the unseen. She could summon spirits, speak to the dead, foretell destinies, and bend the threads of life itself. For this, she was both respected and feared. To welcome a Völva into your hall was an honor, for she could reveal the future of a clan, the outcome of a voyage, or the fate of a kingdom. But to anger her was dangerous, for her curses could linger like a shadow over generations. The appearance of a Völva was unmistakable. She carried the Seidstafr, a long carved staff believed to channel magical power. She often wore cloaks lined with animal fur or feathers, symbolizing her connection to the natural and the spiritual. Some were adorned with charms, bones, or sacred stones, each tool amplifying her connection to the unseen. When she performed Seidr, the ritual was a spectacle. The Völva would sit upon a high seat or platform raised above the others, as chants and songs, the Galdr, echoed around her. Helpers, often young women, would circle her, singing to guide her spirit into trance. Slowly, she would slip into a state beyond the ordinary, her voice trembling with words not her own. Her prophecy could bring hope or terror. A good future meant rejoicing. A dark vision could shake entire communities to their core. And yet, even when her words foretold doom, the people listened because no one dared ignore the voice of fate. The sagas themselves preserve glimpses of these women. In the saga of Eric the Red, a powerful Völva is described entering a great hall during a time of famine. Clad in a cloak of black cat skins, with a polished staff in her hand, she was seated in the high place of honor. One by one, people came before her to hear their fortunes. Her presence commanded awe and fear. For though she held no crown, no throne, and no army, the Völva ruled with something even greater, the belief that she could see what no one else could. Yet even with all their power, the Völur were not the only ones who sought the secrets of Seidr, for at the very heart of Norse myth stands a figure who could not resist its call: Odin, the All-Father himself. Odin was no ordinary god. He was the ruler of Asgard, the god of wisdom, poetry, war, and death. He was the one who hung upon Yggdrasil, pierced by his own spear, to gain the knowledge of the runes, the one who sacrificed an eye at Mimir's well in exchange for a single drink of wisdom. His life was defined by a relentless pursuit of knowledge, no matter the cost. And so, Odin turned to Seidr, but Seidr was not his by birthright. It belonged to Freyja, the goddess of love, beauty, and death, and the greatest mistress of this forbidden art. It was she who first taught Seidr to the Aesir, and it was from her that Odin himself learned its deepest secrets. Yet this act carried a terrible paradox, for in the world of the Vikings, Seidr was a woman's magic. To practice it as a man was considered ergi, a word that meant not only unmanly, but shameful, dishonorable, even perverse. It was a mark of weakness, something that could stain a warrior's reputation forever. And yet, Odin embraced it. The god of war and kingship, the very embodiment of masculine power, crossed this forbidden boundary. Why? Because Odin understood what others feared. The true power lay not just in strength of arms, but in knowledge of the unseen, in knowing the patterns of fate before they unfolded, in weaving victory out of the threads of destiny itself. This choice reveals the paradox of Odin, the mightiest of the gods, yet willing to endure shame in pursuit of wisdom. A ruler, yet also a wanderer who donned disguises and walked among mortals. A warrior, yet a practitioner of a woman's sorcery. Through Seidr, Odin became more than a god of war. He became a god of mysteries, a god who bent every law, every custom, even every taboo, if it meant unlocking another piece of forbidden knowledge. And in this, the All-Father showed a truth that frightened his own people, that power does not belong to strength alone. Sometimes it is found in the courage to reach for what others fear to touch. But if Odin was the seeker of Seidr, Freyja was its heart. Long before the All-Father bent the rules of honor to taste its power, Seidr belonged to Freyja, the goddess of beauty, desire, battle, and death. She was more than just a figure of love and fertility. She was the first and greatest mistress of this forbidden art. It was Freyja who carried Seidr into the halls of the gods, she who revealed its mysteries to the Aesir and taught Odin himself how to weave destiny. Without her, Seidr might never have touched the world of men. But Freyja's magic was not simple or gentle. Like the goddess herself, it was full of contradictions. She was radiant, beloved, and sought after. Yet her sorcery could terrify even the gods. For Seidr was more than prophecy. It was power, to bless, to curse, to heal, and to destroy. Freyja embodied this duality. As a goddess of fertility, her Seidr could ensure the growth of crops, the safety of childbirth, the prosperity of families. As a goddess of love, she could weave passion and longing into the hearts of men and women alike. But as a goddess of death, she also ruled over the fallen. Half of all warriors slain in battle did not go to Odin's Valhalla. They went to Freyja's hall, Folkvanger, to rest beneath her watchful gaze. Her role as the guardian of Seidr made her both revered and feared. To invoke Freyja was to invite the most intimate forces of life and death into one's fate. And unlike Odin, who stole wisdom with sacrifice, Freyja gave Seidr freely to those bold enough to seek her favor. But her gift carried weight. For once the veil was lifted, once the threads of destiny were seen, there was no turning back. Those who embraced Seidr walked a path of visions and shadows, forever touched by forces most mortals dared not approach. Freyja was not merely a goddess of beauty. She was the initiator, the teacher, and the protector of those who stepped into the dangerous realm of Seidr. To her followers, she was both comfort and warning. And so, while Odin's practice of Seidr marked him as paradoxical, it was Freyja who embodied it in its truest form, a magic of creation and destruction, of love and death, of destiny and doom. And what Freyja taught was not theory, but practice. To step into Seidr was to perform a ritual unlike any other in the Viking world. The vulva, or sometimes even a daring practitioner, would begin by entering a trance state, a journey into the unseen. This trance could be induced by rhythmic drumming, by hypnotic chanting known as Galdr, or perhaps by the use of sacred herbs that open the mind to visions. The body sat still, but the spirit wandered far. Around her, attendants, often women called ward singers, would chant and sing, weaving sound like a net that carried the Seeresses across the threshold between worlds. The high seat, the staff, the cloak, these were not mere symbols, but sacred tools that helped anchor her as she moved between the realms of gods, spirits, and fate. Through this altered state, Seidr unlocked its greatest power, divination. The seeress could foretell the outcome of a voyage, the success of a harvest, or the death of a warrior before his battle even began. Chieftains and kings sought these visions, for a single prophecy could shape the course of war or peace. But Seidr went beyond seeing fate. It could manipulate it. A skilled practitioner might weave blessings into a thread of life, ensuring prosperity, protection, or victory. Yet the same hands could knot that thread into a curse, calling misfortune upon an enemy, sickness upon a rival, or doom upon an entire family. And at its darkest, Seidr touched the realm of the dead, for some rituals invoked necromancy, calling upon spirits for guidance, or forcing them to speak of secrets hidden in the grave. The dead, restless and bound, were believed to reveal truths that even the living could not see. To those who witnessed these ceremonies, Seidr must have seemed both wondrous and terrifying. A magic that could heal or destroy, a gift that could bless generations, or bring ruin upon them. But for all its power, Seidr carried shadows that even the boldest feared to confront, because where there is the power to bless, there is also the power to curse. A whispered spell, a ritual gone unseen, could bring famine to a village or sickness to a child. The fear of this unseen danger made Seidr both respected and dreaded. Accusations of practicing Seidr could be as dangerous as the craft itself. To be named a seer or a sorcerer was to invite suspicion, exile, or even death. In a world where survival was already fragile, few communities could tolerate those believed to hold destructive powers. And while women dominated the practice, for men it was worse. To engage in Seidr was to risk being branded with ergi, shame, dishonor, the loss of one's very manhood. Warriors lived and died by their honor. A single accusation of Seidr could strip it all away. For a man to step into this magic was to risk not only his life, but his legacy. And so Seidr lived in the shadows, practiced at night, whispered of in sagas, carried on in secret by those willing to endure its costs. It was at once a tool of hope and a weapon of fear, its very existence balanced between reverence and condemnation. This was the paradox of Viking witchcraft. It could shape the destiny of kings, yet destroy the lives of those who dared to wield it. And yet, despite its dangers, Seidr was never fully cast aside. For in the world of the Vikings, survival was too fragile, too uncertain, to ignore any force that might tip fate in their favor. Seidr found its way into daily life, woven quietly into the fabric of Viking society. Its practical uses were many. A seeress might perform a ritual to bring healing to the sick, to protect a household against wandering spirits, or to guide a voyage across storm-ridden seas. A farmer might seek her blessing to ensure a good harvest, or protection against crop failure in the unforgiving northern soil. But Seidr was not only for the humble or the fearful, it was also a weapon of kings and chieftains. Rulers often sought the wisdom of the Völur before great battles, their voices shaping the very decisions that determined life and death. A prophecy of victory could steal an army's courage. A vision of defeat might delay a campaign altogether. In this way, Seidr became a hidden but powerful political force, its whispers carried into the halls of power. And beneath it all, superstition bound Seidr to the everyday lives of ordinary people. Charms against bad luck, whispers against illness, tokens for safe childbirth or voyages, all these reflected the deep belief that unseen forces ruled the world. To ignore them was folly. To respect them, survival. Seidr was not just magic. It was the unseen hand in every Viking hearth, battlefield, and voyage, a silent companion in their struggle against fate itself. But the story of Seidr did not end with the Viking Age. Like the sagas themselves, it lingered, reshaped, and hidden as the old gods gave way to a new faith. With the Christianization of Scandinavia, open practice of Seidr became dangerous. The new church saw it not as sacred, but as heresy, the work of devils and demons. Seeresses, who once sat in high seats of honor, now risked exile, punishment, or worse. And yet, the old ways refused to vanish. Echoes of Seidr survived in the Icelandic sagas, where Seeresses and their rituals are described with awe and fear. Folklore preserved fragments of the chants, the staffs, the belief that fate could still be glimpsed and shaped. Though stripped of its sacred place, Seidr lived on in the whispers of storytellers and the practices of hidden folk traditions. And in modern times, it has begun to stir again. Among the followers of Asatru, the revival of Norse paganism, and in other heathen movements, Seidr has been reconstructed from sagas, archaeology, and intuition. Today, some still seek the trance, the chant, the sacred staff, not to control destiny, but to reconnect with the mysteries their ancestors once embraced. For though centuries of change have passed, the allure of Seidr remains, the promise of seeing beyond the veil, the temptation of shaping what others call unshakable. The Norse may be gone, but their sorcery still breathes. In myth, in ritual, and in the hearts of those who dare to walk the old paths. Seidr was never just magic. It was power, to see beyond the veil, to shape what others believed unshakable. In the Viking Age, it was feared, revered, and condemned, yet it endured. Odin's pursuit of it shows us something eternal, humanity's relentless hunger for forbidden knowledge. And though the sagas are silent and the old chants lost to time, the whispers of Seidr still linger in the northern winds, waiting for those bold enough to listen.